I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Kamesh, Chief Innovation and Quality Officer, OFI, and a key member of their executive team. With over 15 years at OFI, he leads a global network of innovation centers driving quality and food safety across more than 120 manufacturing plants worldwide. A seasoned food safety leader, his pioneering graduate research even shaped USDA guidelines. His influence extends beyond OFI, and he's a founding member of the Asia Innovation Council of the Conference Board and serves on the Editorial Advisory Board of Food Technology. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Kamesh.
Good morning, everyone. You know, the dim lighting. Huh? Okay. I'll keep moving around. I'm very hard to. I'll try. Yeah. I'm just getting advice that I need to stand here, and it's very hard to restrict me. You know, I move around. Sorry. Yeah. So this lighting, I think, is going to lull you to sleep. And I'll try very hard to wake you up because food safety is a topic that should keep us awake, right? Just one thing, you know, I was worried today morning thinking about the traffic, you know, I have to come through KR Puram, you know. So, Namma Uru, Bangalore, a lot of traffic, Namma traffic, so much of it. But thankfully, you know, I got here on time and we had plenty of time to get started. So it gives me comfort that, you know, we can definitely cover some ground here. Now, thank you for the great introduction. Thank you for inviting. And specifically, thank you, Mr. Pancham. That was very helpful for me to also appreciate FSSAI. I was telling him my old stint in, you know, MIDC, Bhosri, Pune. There used to be PFA inspectors. You know, the structure was very different. A lot of paper guidelines, and it used to be quite chaotic. So we have moved to a much more digital environment today. Great degree of new regulations, and I love the thought that he mentioned that food safety is for the well-being of nation, right? What a brilliant way to think about, you know, the role that all of us play here. So when, you know, you think about Army and other such things about, you know, contributing to the well-being of the nation, everybody in this room is contributing to the well-being of the nation. So thank you for that. Thank you for your service. So I'll get started and try and give you, the way I've structured this conversation is really to say, give you a little bit of overview of OFI. OFI as, you know, it's a contraction for Olam Food Ingredients, who we are. A little bit about the QFS function, how we organized, principles on which we operate, how do we leverage partnerships, who do we partner with and why, how we leverage technology, what systems, practices, and what kind of culture we're trying to build, right? So, you know, I'll be available post the talk, you know, probably during breaks or something. If you want to walk up and have a chat, happy to have a conversation. You'll also find me on LinkedIn, yeah? Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing is, who are we? We are a global leader. We offer naturally good beverage ingredients and solutions. We have sourcing expertise that covers a lot of farmer relationships all the way to destination markets to various customers. I think some of our customers are in this room as well. And we have deep innovation expertise that spans from the farm through all the way to consumers and customer solutions. So I'll talk through all that, but broadly, this is our portfolio, right? So we do cocoa, coffee, dairy, nuts, and spices, and the segments we support are bakery, beverages, chocolate, dairy, savory, and snacking. So this is where our customer base would be. And the type of customers we support would be CPG, you know, consumer packaged food companies, food service, HoReCa as it's called in India, and retailers, right? So we would support all of them in terms of our customer base. So this is giving you context of the breadth of what are quality food safety challenges, right? Because you look at the product portfolio, very diverse. You look at the customer segments, So we obviously have to rely on a lot of partnerships, and this is a word that you'll keep hearing throughout this conversation. And we do a lot of co-creation, so which means we work with customers to design their products, to deliver them solutions. It could be on sustainability, traceability, quality food safety, variety of things. And we'll talk you through all of that. So this is probably a little bit of an eye chart, particularly if you're sitting at the back. But broadly, what it is showing is our global, operation footprint. So where our cocoa operations are, or coffee operations are, or dairy, or where our offices are. But essentially, we work with a network of about 2.4 million farmers, right? And we, source from them, process all these ingredients. So where our operations are located in 34 countries, 150 plus manufacturing plants, of which 49 are what we call tier 1, very large operations. Tier 2 would be 106. We source the 5 product groups, which I've already mentioned, 18,000 plus employees, 11,000 plus customers, right? So that's the size and scale of this operation. So that's the context of our food safety journey, right? And I'm also pleased to recognize 2 of my valued colleagues in the audience. Joan O'Shea, she's our global head of quality food safety based out of Singapore. And Shivaram Raju, who is our contract manufacturing quality food safety head for India. So both of them are sitting here. Do you mind just raising your hands quickly? There you go. So, thank you. It's always nice to get some extra support from your own company too. Okay, so let me continue. So the question is, one of the trickiest aspects of any QFS organization is it's usually deeply buried somewhere. It's part of operations team, it's sometimes part of R&D, sometimes it's part of some other function. I've even seen it part of procurement. So quality just gets submerged somewhere. We are fortunate in OFI that we are organized as an independent structure. We report directly to the CEO, and there's a global QFS leadership team that oversees everything, but our frontline is really all our site QFS teams. So site for us is a factory, a plant. Every single one of those would have a QFS team. And they are obviously responsible for developing quality plans, implementing processes, procedures, executing training programs, and we'll talk about some of our daily operational things like, seed, sate, sorted, etc., and how that really is part of how we operate, right? Then the regional QFS teams, we believe regional QFS is very critical because there's a lot of differences in how different countries are organized. So regional knowledge, understanding is super critical. We just heard about how FSSAI is organized, the laws, the regulations in India. These are similarly, they're similar. A lot of the global regulations are organized under codex, but yet enforcement and how it's understood and implemented is quite different. So, Nigeria would be NAFTAC, or the Korean FTA, or the US FTA. Every country would have its own, nuances. So having a regional structure is therefore super critical. The global QFS team allows us to make sure we keep all of this harmonized. We have what we call COEs. These are not centers of excellence, they're centers of expertise. A center of expertise, and we have both in innovation and quality food safety. In quality food safety, we have expert COEs on food safety, vendor quality management, regulatory compliance, and quality systems. Talk a little bit about how that's all structured. So let's start with a little bit of the principles, right? How do we operate? The first and the most important thing for us is our motto, which is, we do no harm. So it's great that, we make fantastic products, we do innovative things, we delight our customers, we co-create a lot of buzzwords. But the first and the most fundamental thing for us is we do no harm, right? That's our motto, and that's what we strive towards. And this leads to the principle that, a relentless focus on risk. Because a lot of people say, we've got great systems, we've got a lot of, processes, etc. But, understanding risk, mitigating risk, and addressing risk is an ongoing, constant journey. It's a very dynamic process. So one of the reasons why we have to come to, meetings like this is we have to keep updating ourselves, There are some folks in this room that I've, met or seen for a few decades now, and their knowledge continues to, increase and develop, and they're still coming here. They're still coming here trying to learn, right? So that's a big part of, updating yourself so you can have a relentless focus on risk. Partnerships are critical. We'll give you some examples as we go along. But this is a nice African proverb, we operate also in Africa, and it says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And, so this, again, is where, we have to work with a lot of different people and sources of expertise. We can't do it ourselves. So the first and most basic thing, Mr. Pancham was talking about, street vendors and food at home and quality and safety. For us, equally important is agriculture. What most of us don't realize is food safety absolutely starts at the farm. The choice of chemicals that are being used, the pesticides, and why this is so important is all of this is unseen. When you bring those vegetables home, or you bring the cuts of meat home or something, you don't know what is inside. You cannot see it, right? So the first and most fundamental aspect of food safety starts at the farm. We'll talk a little bit about how that works. So we provide, we have deep relationships with farming communities. Everything from training, so we have some of the most developed IPM. Some of you would have heard of IPM, integrated pest management, trying to reduce usage of harmful and dangerous, pesticides, plant protection chemicals. So we do a lot of that work. For example, in Guntur, where our chili processing sourcing is, focused on. We've done tremendous work with, reducing usage of pesticides, right? Provide a lot of resources, improved varieties, credit, fertilizers, and there's a whole digital ecosystem that supports it. I'll talk to you a little bit about that. And the next bit is really the technology that supports all of this. So there are three things you'll see on here. The first one is called OFI Direct. So in very many of our markets, farmers have access to an app that's available on their phone. It helps them with price discovery. They can see what is the price at which they can sell, their produce at. They have access to credit. They have access to, fertilizers, chemicals, and, what is approved. So, many times farmers lose out on the opportunity to get good income because their material may not be export ready or export suitable, right? Because they've used some harmful and dangerous chemicals. So what is available? What is safe? Where can they source it? At what price? So it's really amazing to see how these kind of apps, not only ours, but even other companies, that have allowed farmers to participate in much more sophisticated ways of managing their operation. AdSource is a sustainability system that we offer that allows you to track the product that you produce, that when you're sourcing those ingredients, what is its carbon footprint, what is the impact of those ingredients on livelihood, farmer livelihoods, and things of that sort. AdSource is a fantastic website. I encourage you to go check that out. And so these are some examples of how technology can be transformational in either tracking, measuring, and also supporting farmers and farm livelihoods. If farmers are poor, they will not bother to use safe chemicals. If they don't understand, they will not be able to apply. And if there's no economic incentive. And one of the things, I always say when I travel around the world is that, we are wanting to drive sustainability. We want to save the world from climate change. But we're expecting the poorest farmers of the world to pay for all of that, right? Because people still go to supermarkets or stores or whatever, they buy whatever is cheap. Bhaiya kitne ko milega, can you reduce the kami madkoli, things like that. There's never that sense that what is the value and what is the, importance of this. So until we improve these farming communities, until we make a difference, until we educate these farmers, nothing can change. You can have a HACCP till the cows come home in all the factories. You can have all fancy regulations. But if you don't start the transformation at the farm gate, nothing will change. So in India, we'll give you some examples of how we have done. So, pesticide contamination is one of the biggest challenges. A lot of rejections you'll see in many export markets. Spices, turmeric, ginger, cumin from Rajasthan, turmeric from, say, Tamil Nadu or Andhra, Telangana. In each of these places, our focus has been how do we increase, focus both on sustainability and food safety, right? What are appropriate ways to manage pests and diseases, work with lead farmers, and we have some numbers there. The numbers there is, from whatever we source in these markets, the amount of material that is suitable for export, which means it meets a EU requirement or an Australia's requirement or something. So steadily, that 45% material that we could source that is suitable for export is now all the way up to 90% in 2025. So we've been able to see some tremendous benefits in making these interventions and working with farmers. Oh, sorry, the down arrow is what? Very counterintuitive. So vendor quality management, this is the other big piece from a partnership standpoint. We have to work with a lot of vendors. We have our own digital system called Quest. It's our global vendor management system. We can onboard a vendor, get all their documentation, then work through assessment, approval. We can do ongoing performance monitoring, and finally, periodic reassessment, right? All of this is possible through this. It's a centralized warehouse. While we do this with vendors, we also actively partner with the customers. So this is an example of a conversation where, we collaborated with Kellanova. Kellanova, for many of you, this is just Kellogg's in its new avatar, and reorganized in a few different ways. And we have here Cheng Boy Lao. She is the QFS director, senior QFS director for AMEA region, in conversations with Joan O'Shea, my colleague. And they were talking about how, if you collaborate in food safety, that can actually be a competitive advantage, right? And that, by the way, is another thing we talk a lot about. We've done significant work in creating RTE, ready-to-eat, onion, garlic, spice ingredients in the US. That has made it an advantage for us, because many companies that don't have a kill step will reach out to us to seek that material, right? So food safety is not just a cost, it's not just a burden, it's actually also a competitive advantage, and I want you to reflect on that. We also talk a lot about the fact that let science and data guide you. One of the challenges with, and this is not just in the industry, but it's also within the quality food safety community, a lot of times we get stuck in our old paradigms. We don't admit or appreciate new science. And science should always guide us. Data should always guide us. If there's better knowledge, better information available, how can we incorporate that? And I want to again bring back science and data in one other way to think about regulatory compliance. You just heard a slew of acts that Mr. Pancham talked about that the Indian government has enacted. Why are these acts being enacted? Because there's changing environment, the new functional foods, novel foods, right? What guides that? As a country, India is evolving to recognize it. As food safety professionals, we have to also look for ways to upgrade our knowledge. Here's one example. I probably use this. So Food Akai is one. This is basically an artificial intelligence platform that accurately and constantly tracks emerging threats. So today morning I was seeing an email, there is some material that's been flagged, maybe for, presence of aflatoxin, or somewhere in some other country, something has been detected with chlorpyrifos. We get to see constant awareness of what's getting picked up, what are the threats, what are the regulators acting on, which country, what does India, put something on hold. You heard about enforcement, or what has UK done, right? So there's a constant barrage of this information, but the platform also allows you to start seeing what threats are emerging, what is significantly out there. Some of you would have seen, cinnamon with lead was a big trend for some time, a lot of pickups on that. So you're constantly staying alert and awake, right? And similarly, there's another tool called SGS DJ Comply that we use, which does a lot of horizon scanning, emerging regulations, right? So most of you are familiar, not just Codex, but various countries would be enacting regulations. Typically, all of them have a draft process, then there's an approval, comment process, public input. So as food industry partners, we should be aware, right? If regulation is too drastic and it is something you cannot meet, you need to petition, you need to participate, right? So having tools that help you understand this is super critical for us. It's a big part of what we do from a regulatory compliance standpoint. And we also have to support innovation. We keep generating new products, new ingredients, new requirements, new customers with new requirements, new markets with new requirements. So we use a tool called SpecWrite, where we house all our specifications, all our technical information. It also has some regulatory engines attached to it, which will spell out and show what the nutritional label would be for a country, or an ingredient legend for a country. So it makes your life easier, right? So Panchamji, it's not FSSAI, even OFI is trying to digitalize. So this is, it's not very different from the iceberg model that you see. It's the way we think about life. Measures here is basically outcomes, right? Monitor is what we would do inside a company. The variety of programs. You might have an environmental monitoring program. You may have your, incident protocols. You may have, different things you do on a daily basis. It's your system internally. The next thing is the mitigation. So these things would have popped up, or thank you. We popped up some alerts. What are you doing to close those? What are you doing to address those things? Maybe you had an external auditor come and told you something on internal audit. Then finally is the outcome, right? That's the top of the pyramid. So if by the time there's nothing much you can do, it's already all happened, right? But thankfully, this is a dynamic process, so you can keep going and keep improving, even if you've had an outcome. Because if you had a recall, that's already everything below that has failed, right? So ultimately for us, you saw the number of sites we have, innumerable number of farmers, 2.5 million farmers we work with. So at any place, anywhere, we can get this wrong. So getting it right every day is a very difficult task. It's a little bit like those barrage of drones that came over the border, and every single one of them got shot down. Now that's a very difficult task to achieve, right? And think of that 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times difficult as the job we have in food safety. There's so many risks that we deal with on a daily basis. So getting it right every day is a challenge. And for that, one of the most basic things we have rolled out in our company is what we call see it, say it, sort it, which is look and find the issues, report them, and fix them. So we have some cards we'll be passing out, just puts this on for you to see. It's just a very simple reminder of this talk, so please carry one with you. But these are the principles: water control, pest control, sanitation, personal GMP, above the food stream, condition of buildings and equipment. And there's some things we've listed underneath it. It's very simple, very basic, because remember, we operate in so many different countries, lots of different educational backgrounds, languages, etc. We want everybody to be able to understand. Not very different from your street hawker food program kind of thing, right? We want everybody to understand how to do it. And I forgot. On the right side, again, another example of that, we have an app, a digitalized tool that allows each site to track that. So there's a GMP walk report, how many walks they've had, what observations they've had, under what group, what have they done about it. So, recording something is not good enough. Then what have you done to fix it, right? That's the second bit. So I promised you we'll go through systems, processes, people. People are the most important thing, right? We're all here because we want to invest in ourselves. But one of the things I would like to remind everybody in this room is, in QFS, if you're participating in a QFS activity, you are a leader. Why are you a leader? You are a leader because you require courage. You have to go up, stand, report a risk, You have to address that problem. There's no hiding in quality food safety. You cannot hide. The consequences are quite dramatic, quite deadly. Because remember, QFS drives well-being. Our principle is we do no harm. So you have to speak up, right? So being a leader is like an intrinsic process. So if you're saying I'm doing a QFS job, you are a leader. There's no ways around it. So for us, that means owning our development. You have to upskill yourself every day. So we provide this capability, offer this. AIB helps us. We do a lot of training across. This is a training platform, 8 modules, 10 hours of studying time, 5 hours of tests. So you can go through each one of them and learn. But that's not the only thing. We offer lots of other examples, but we're just showing you we can't do this all by ourselves. We have to find partners, So like Sarika Agarwal and your team and Mr. Agarwal, right? Partners who actually deliver this training, deliver these solutions. We also have an internal audit structure which is embedded in the function. So we have our own people going to different sites, and it's a great way to, learn how to do auditing, So if you're a plant manager, say in Gujarat, you can go to Kochi, a QFS person there, and do an audit there. Different processing, different systems, but you learn the principles of auditing, you get better at it, and you're also, teaching each other. But we measure something very important here, corrective action request, CAR, closure, and we monitor that. So this is a live snapshot of one particular day when we were looking at our global numbers. Site audits complete, 88% had finished, and 76% had closed their corrective action. So 76% is not a bad number, but I would really like it to be 100%, right? So this obviously, and we have various people. So these are folks in our Vietnam facility, in US, and dairy, etc., who are reacting to what this has led to them, right? So I won't read all those quotations, but gives you a sense of, that building ownership, understanding of what this means for those individuals. Now, we were talking about this yesterday in an internal global meeting, but, good news can take the stairs, but bad news has to always take the elevator and get to the topmost echelons as fast as possible. So escalation and incident monitoring, we are very big on that. We urge and request and demand that our organization, any bad news, anything that's gone wrong with quality food safety gets escalated quite rapidly. And this talks about the timelines, the degree of risk, and who it needs to get to. So I want to, as I'm wrapping up this talk, I just want to point out, the culture that drives any organization can be very basic. The first one, which is a very regulatory basis, right? You hear what the regulations are, do the bare minimum to comply with them. A standard-based, so maybe you also incorporate customer requirements, other standards you're familiar with. Then risk-based, you're constantly upgrading your knowledge and, understand risks and, go at that level. Or something that's much more proactive, you have your seed programs, they're identifying risks, a lot of preventative thinking, and really getting ahead. And then finally, a sustainable continual improvement process. It's a defined program. It's fully embedded in the way everybody operates, right? It's not something somebody has to engage and do. It's just embedded in every part of the company. It's in the DNA of the organization. So this is based on the British Standards PASS framework. So it helps you kind of ground your thinking on how you can evolve your food safety culture. And this is what we want to aspire to continue to improve and get to that number 5. We are not there yet. So I don't want you to walk away with the impression that, Kamesh came and gave this great speech and he said, OFI's culture is already there. It's not there. And that's one of the reasons we're all here. We also want to learn, right? So ultimately, what's our responsibility, right? Consumer safety, our customers and their brands, and OFI's brand. We have to protect all of them. Remember what I said, we do no harm. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.